Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Panerai Luminor GMT PAM 237, 44 millimeters in stainless steel, one of only 400 made in the H series, and only made in the H series. This one has more than a few memorable nicknames. Now the first, Ghost, is easy to understand, because for some reason, less easy to understand, the watch was never advertised on the Panerai website, in Panerai advertisements, or in any of the Panerai printed catalogs, which gave rise to the other memorable nickname. Now, we've seen this reference on the wrist of no less glitterati than Brad Pitt himself, and given Panerai's propensity in the past to do short custom runs of watches at the request of their more prominent clientele, some have speculated that this watch was created specifically for Brad Pitt as a short series for him to give out to friends, family, and colleagues. Regardless of where it came from, the bottom line is that the allure and appeal of this model is easy to understand. Now the fit and the feel on the wrist is key. You can see alligator strap, much hardier than your typical Panerai calfskin, nevertheless has supple calfskin on the bottom. The facing side touching the wrist spreads its mass evenly thanks to that Panerai cushion case profile. Now on my wrist, which is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, it sits lightly, it spreads its mass evenly, there are no hot spots or pressure points, and the size is imposing, but really, the lugs being as short as they are and the case being as regular as it is, it doesn't extend that much farther than the nominal diameter of 44 millimeters. So you can see, even though my wrist is relatively small, with a fairly average flattish profile across the top, the fit is very secure, and you could wear this watch on a smaller wrist, probably down to 6 inches in circumference. Now the Panerai look is big, but it's more incidental than by design. Originally descended from combat dive watches built for the Italian Navy and Allied forces during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, the Panerai look had to basically be legible because in nocturnal combat operations, legibility equals survivability. Hence, the large indices, the large hands, the abundant lume, the easy-to-read numerals to locate the dial visually at 12 and at 6, and that carries on into the present day. Now, the Luminor case is essentially the look that launched the Paneristo phenomenon in the 90s. Squat, functional, chunky, but also quite clever. You can see the hallmark of this design is and has always been the device protecting the crown, another heirloom from the combat days, originally designed to replace the screw-down crown, which, when wound constantly and set constantly, will wear out the seals of the crown stem. With the locking lever, you simply pull it out when you release the lever, easy to manipulate with wet hands or with gloves, and then you can set the watch. You can also wind it quite easily, and winding the Panerai, again, is just a breeze, even if your hands are sweaty, even if your hands are wet, even if your hands are gloved. And that is an iconic look, very practical in as much as you now have a full, all-aspect shield for the crown and its delicate stem. Practical, handsome, instantly recognizable. This one reads as a classical Panerai Luminor from across the room. Now it's also a high-polish Luminor, so it's got a little bit of a sheen of premium substance to it that the combat dive predecessors simply didn't have. The dial is a matte black, so although you have the high polish of the case, that's actually in distinct contrast to the flat black aesthetic of the dial. Now you'll notice that this one bears a pretty striking resemblance to the well-known PAM 88 GMT. So what's the difference between the PAM 88 and the 237 other than provenance and rarity? Well, the key distinction is the subdial at 9 o'clock. You can see the small seconds is monotone. It's actually in concert with the flat black of the dial, better integrated, just a little bit more coherent than the PAM 88's guilloche silver disc. And you can see 3 hands at center. This is the old style, the old school Panerai GMT look. You have 2 separate indications, local hours at center, and then the extended narrow hand gives you a 24-hour GMT scale. Now summer is coming, we're entering the late spring now, and vacations are on the horizon, and this is the perfect watch to bring with you really in any season. Anytime you're going abroad, being able to reference 2 separate time zones, including the AM-PM status of the second time zone, the remote one, is invaluable. Arguably the ultimate traveler's complication, this is an outstanding example in as much as it leverages Panerai's signature legibility to make the complication just that much more accessible to the user. Now I want to call out another high-end feature of this watch that sets it apart from other Panerai references. I talked about the difference between the strap material, here being rectangular scale alligator in brown as opposed to the rubber and the calfskin typically used on Panerai Luminor models, but they also typically use a pin buckle. And here we have a full deployant clasp with a twin trigger release mechanism. Far more complex, but also far more secure than a typical pin buckle. This one's outstanding because it adds to the premium sheen of this upscale Luminor reference. You have the full polish, you have the alligator, and then you have the security of a twin trigger release, not single trigger, not friction fit. This will ensure that accidental deployment doesn't occur when it's on your wrist. Moreover, because once it's sized and you actually fit the strap through this little pin, you're not going to accidentally risk dropping it when donning it or removing it, so you don't have to worry about it falling onto bathroom tiles, for example, when you're taking it off, as can happen with a pin buckle. Very clever, upscale, and in the Panerai Pantheon, fairly unique. This model has a lot of unique aesthetic and backstory distinctions that really set it apart. Inside, it's nuts and bolts exactly the way you want it on a Panerai. Tough as nails, Panerai OP8 caliber based on the Valjoux 7750 automatic winding. COSC, it is a certified Swiss chronometer, and this watch having a bit of a nautical theme, a little sporting offshore aesthetic to it. It does actually say ocean chronometer on the back. Blazoned on the case back, chronometer is something of a standard of identity. You cannot put it on a Swiss watch unless it is COSC certified. So that's a little bit of the provenance of the watch's mechanical pedigree built right in. Also 4 Hertz, relatively high beat, that's the modern standard, so not vintage in any respect. It has all of the COSC standards you'd want to see for rate stability over time, including, of course, that 4 Hertz rate, or 8 beats per second. Dual time also features hack seconds and a jump date. Now, hack second on a chronometer is significant because if you have a watch that is rated to no more than 6 seconds of gain per day, no more than 4 seconds of loss, being able to set it to the second to a reference time, such as a known reliable quartz watch or an atomic clock online, is indispensable. So in addition to the COSC, in addition to the automatic winding, the dual time, and the durability, you have that stop seconds feature for precise setting. In a lot of ways, this is the total package for summer. Vacation time is coming, and when you get this watch, not only do you get an outstanding watch with a fascinating backstory and a little bit of a mythology to it, but you're getting it 100% complete with all Panerai boxes, technical manuals, documents of provenance in outstanding condition. It even has the original COSC chronometer certificate for this watch and movement, plus an accessory rubber strap because you're going to want to go in the water, and a tool so you can remove that strap and replace the leather strap at will, doing it yourself without the intercession of a jeweler, naturally, while you're abroad on vacation. If that sounds good to you and you're getting ready to roll out for the summer, check out this Panerai Luminor GMT PAM 237, whether you call it the Brad Pitt or the Ghost. I think I'm going to call this the watch you want.